All right. So we are back again with the March edition of Citizens Advisory Board. So thank you all for joining us. We've got a good presentation from Dean Harris teed up for today's information. So we'll kind of jump into that right away. And Dean, feel free to take it away and I'll advance the slides for you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Justin. So before you today is WRTA's Trumbull County Service Plan. And for those who don't know, the Trumbull County Commissioners, July of last year, asked WRTA to look into what it would take, what we could do with service in Trumbull County. So we got together with our planning company, Delta Development, and we also had a little steering committee, and we also did a survey with the public to try and get input on what the plan might look like. So as part of that, we put together this 5-year plan. Go ahead, next slide, please, Justin. So this plan is really based around 3 components. We have our operating side, our capital side, and a small little administration side. Next slide. So the operating side, we have our 3 services we propose in this plan. Our traditional fixed route service, probably seen this if you've been up in Warren or along the streets, our big 35-foot buses. We also have our countywide service, and that's our smaller vehicles that go curb to curb and pick people up on a scheduled service where you have to register in advance. And something that we're proposing for Trumbull County, because of the density of and the layout, fixed routes doesn't quite meet it. Countywide's not quite good enough. So we're looking at this zone service, which is again a curb to curb service where you can register in advance, but you also can do same day booking. And they're smaller areas, so it allows you to move around in your local area, but also will connect you with fixed route. Next slide. So the fixed route side, we have the 6 routes that we already have up there. We're also looking at adding basically 3 new ones. One of them, the first one here, the Kent State Trumbull one, is not exactly new. What the proposal is to take the current Route 28, which goes from Youngstown to Warren, but then it continues on to Kent State Trumbull, is to create a new route from Warren up to Kent State Trumbull and continue on through Champion Heights. So to be its own standalone route. We're also looking at adding a new Jard route. It's more of a cross-county route. They would go along 304 between 422 and Hubbard. And another new route we're looking at adding is the Lordstown Express out of Warren. So it gives us a connection to all those new businesses down there. TGX is starting up, the battery, and the truck manufacturing firm. And also some enhancements along all the other routes. Next slide. The countywide is still the countywide. It still covers the rest of the county where the fixed route doesn't serve, and basically where the zone service would not serve. Next slide. So the zone service, there's 5 zones picked out for right now to serve these areas. And we'll have a map here in a second that you can look at to give you a better visual of what these zones look like. But again, these zones are designed to provide faster connection in the zones for those individuals that want to get around in their area. And they're also going to connect up at a certain spot along a fixed route. So if you need to go elsewhere in the county, you can connect with the fixed route at these predetermined times. Well, one thing I forgot to mention for those. So this new service, we currently run service now Monday through Friday, 6 to 6 on the fixed route and on the countywide and was in the zone service. But if we do officially go into Trumbull County, we would expand that to add Saturdays. And then eventually, as we build up our fleet and our number of operators we have available to us, we'll then extend the service to 9 p.m. to kind of flow with our service here in Mahoning County. Next slide. So here's the map of the enhanced fixed routes. So those who can see you can see the dark purplish color down the bottom right. That's the Gerard route. It goes across 04. And then the light purple going upper left, that's the enhanced Kent State Trumbull route in the Champion. And then I guess it's golden color that goes from Warren down to Lordstown. Those are the three new routes. And then the yellow one, the green one, and then there's some other colors in there too that they're all enhanced. They go further out into the community to provide better connections. Next slide. So this slide shows the 5 zones that will overlay with the fixed routes. And you can see here that they cover kind of more of the urban, a little bit urbanized areas, but just still not urban enough. The fixed route makes sense. There's just not enough people to justify a fixed route bus. With the zone service, it gives a better connection, faster connections for the individuals in those zones. Next slide. So on this slide, this kind of ties everything together. So this is where, if you look and you'll see these little red circles or dots, these are what we're called like mini nodes. So these are in some of these spots are where the zones will interface with the fixed route service. So there'll be like shelters or benches or something along those spots where the fixed routes will come and stop and drop people off, and the zone service can then pick up people at those stops and also drop them off. So you've got a timed connection with those routes. And some of these situations, I'll go over 2 of them that really show some good promise. So in Liberty Township, where the Giant Eagle is, you'll see where the Gerard route goes in there. Well, not only does this new proposed route go into the Giant Eagle, we have 3 routes from Youngstown that also stop at Giant Eagle. So that's a good place to have a nice shelter, a little area for everybody to meet up. Can transfer between buses and can also transfer over to the zone service in that area. And then something a little bit bigger we're planning potentially is down in Jackson Township. Now this, we're thinking, could be a good spot for a potential parkway lot and a transit center. So basically a place where buses can pull in. There might be 2 or 3 bays the buses pull in, have a small little lobby and restroom facility for individuals to transfer for that area, because we have those routes coming from Youngstown into Jacksonville and into Lordstown, and this new proposed route coming in out of Warren. And on top of that, hopefully starting December, we're going to be starting a route out of Youngstown that goes to Akron. And that'll be a great place to have a parking lot so the bus can stop there, pick up individuals who don't want to drive into Akron, and make the connection into Akron. The purpose of this new route, at least to start with, is to help provide connection to medical appointments that you may have in Akron. And once we get to Akron, Akron has service to Cleveland, right to VA hospital. So we're hoping this will be a nice connection for those that need to get to the VA hospital to be able to get there with a little less hassle. So these mini nodes, again, could be just as small as a bench, shelters, or this transit center. So it's a nice way to make a little more transit enhancements and a little better riding experience for the passengers. Next slide. So for this plan, because of the way things unfold, the first year is going to be a slow growth. It's going to take a while to hire operators, and well, mostly it's because of the equipment. It takes between 6 months to a year to get vehicles. So the first year, we're going to probably hire about 14 operators to do some of the enhanced service, the extra Saturday, and those some additional countywide service. Year 2 is when our buses should start arriving, and we'll hire about 30 more operators to get up to 43. That will allow us to do the zone service and extend those routes out further into the community. And then year 3 through 5 of the plan is basically just looking at what the routes are doing, what the service is doing, and modifying as needed. And for all this additional service, we're also going to need some support staff. So we're going to need some extra staff that cleans and fuels the vehicles, extra mechanics, dispatchers, customer service staff to handle the additional demand out of our staff. Next slide. So this is kind of a financial look at how the money will be spent. So you see year 1, it's about what we're spending now to provide the service. Year 2, we start gearing up, we start increasing our route service and our countywide service, so that increases it up. In year three, you see we have the fixed route maxed out, the countywide service maxed out, and then we have the zone service maxed out. And 4 and 5 are basically just a small growth from that point. That will be because of cost increase and also because of adjustments to possible routes to continue it, enhancing the service that are served the community. Next slide. So the capital side, there's a couple big components and a couple small ones. So the two big ones, we'd like to build a multimodal transit center somewhere in downtown Warren. We also need to build a storage and service facility somewhere in Warren because we really don't want to be driving the vehicles back and forth between our garage down here and up there. It's just too much wear and tear on it. And that also creates a lot of deadhead time for vehicles. Another area we're looking at is electric vehicles. We really want to start moving toward the electric economy. So we want to make sure that we are designing our facilities to handle the electric demand for doing vehicles. So there'll be charging stations at both the transit center and at the storage facility. And the mini nodes we talked about, those are benches, shelters, and even maybe a small transit center. And the transit enhanced amenities are like our software we use for trip booking, Wi-Fi in the buses, and items like that to help, again, provide a better riding experience for the passengers. Next slide. Oop, go ahead. And then, so here's like two pictures of examples of some buildings that they are planning because someone found. First one on the left is the Multimodal Transit Center. And what we're looking at for there is a place, again, for our bus to pull off the street, so not parked on the street, where there's covered space for our passengers where they can stay warm or dry and, or cool during the summer. There'll be benches and there'll be vending machines so you can get a snack while you're waiting for the bus. Some office space, conference space for the staff that's working up there. Restrooms for the drivers and passengers, so we've got that. Even possibly little mini shops or some kind of retail space. We have that here in Trumbull County at our federal station. We had a donut shop, but because of COVID, they unfortunately had to close down. But we'll be, when COVID's over, we will again put that back out. Hopefully, bring a new shop back in there. We're also looking at bicycle storage racks because we do carry a lot of bikes on our buses. It'd be nice to have some stored when you're going to work, and signage, of course. Now for the storage facility, we're looking at about 35 bus storage. Lots of buses that we're going to have up there. We need a place to wash the buses and to service them, so fueling them. We're not going to do any maintenance up here. We feel it's going to be more cost effective to have all our maintenance done at one location, so we'll continue to maintain vehicles at our shop here in Mahoney County. Next slide. So on the capital side, I wouldn't pay too much detail of how much money is shown on this slide, because there's a lot, but more to get an idea of the kind of the cost and when it's going to happen. So like in the first year, purchasing land to hold the facilities that we talked about. Also to start procuring buses. Hopefully small buses you can usually get in the first year, but then you can see in the second year where we start buying the larger buses, which start installing the Wi-Fi and some other minor improvements like shelters and stuff. We'll start installing those. And by year three, hopefully we'll have the buildings designed and the property purchased so we can start construction on the transit center and on the storage facility. We've got two components to each one. We've got the two buildings, but then additional costs to add the electrical infrastructure. I'm thinking these costs, like when I told to put the plan together, I said, think of the best building you could find and how much it's going to cost. So we have the dream numbers here. In reality, that cost is probably high for what we can afford, but we want to make sure we weren't underselling what we might need. So hopefully we're overselling it. And then going out year 4 and 5 is just more bus purchases. And the good part about this slide is even though it's a lot of money, most of it will be paid for by federal funds. We've been very successful in getting grants to pay for all of our projects we've been doing. So I don't see that changing in the future, especially in the next 3 to 4 years as with this new administration that really wants to emphasize infrastructure. So I think we'll be able to do most of this, what we're looking at here. Next slide. So on the administrative side, it's kind of a flow chart sort of what we're doing on the admin side. So one of the things we're really going to be is aggressive with the marketing plan. We want to make sure people know we're here, we're providing service, let people know what that service is and how to use that service. So we'll be very aggressive on that. Then we're also going to be, as the years roll on, we've got to evaluate the service as we put it in place, as we expand it. Still going to be doing the design work on the two facilities. We're going to conduct annual surveys. With this being new service in Trumbull and Warren area, we don't have a lot of history of what works and what doesn't work. So what people need and don't need. So we got to do a little more in-depth surveys than we do down in Mahoning County. And then, of course, we have to find places to put the shelters and other enhancements. So we identify those locations. Next slide. And this is our last slide, and it is basically the three components of the cost layout. So the first line for operating service, we talked about, covers the cost to operate the service. The second line is a summary of the cost for the capital. And the third line is some of the costs for the administrative tasks that we're talking about. And the year 2 and 3, those big numbers, that is the A&E cost to design the two facilities. And so you can kind of see the upper range of what we could be spending for service in Trumbull County if we can move forward with that with the commissioners. So at this point, I'm done and can answer any questions. You have any specific questions, or you can reach out later to Justin or myself, and I'll be glad to follow up on it. But glad to. Oh yeah.
I did put one more slide in there for you, Dean. I saw that this went out today, so I figured this would be a good time to.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to bring it up, but we're currently actually have a meeting running concurrently with this meeting for our coordinated plan. So right now we're working on a coordinated plan for Trumbull and Mahoning counties. And what this plan does, it kind of sets the framework for how we allocate federal funds from the 5310 program. And those are funds that are used for kind of like specialized trips for mostly for seniors and those with disabilities. And it supplements what service we provide. So there's two surveys that's one survey, but two versions of it out there that if you go to our website, and you probably have it on your website too, Justin, I'm assuming, and you can go there, you click on it, take the survey, and it will ask questions about the service and what you want, what you think we need, and what you like, what you don't like. So we really need the input. Once this process is done, it allows us to put together it's like a request for projects. We're doing this springish, early summer, so that the nonprofits, transits, and others can propose to like I'll give you an example. Easter Seals uses the 50% funds to buy buses with to help provide service for their individuals, and we have a few others that do the same thing. So this is one way of helping those nonprofits be able to continue their work without and get this needed equipment they need to provide that service. So again, I'll answer any questions about this or about the plan or even our service we have in Mahoning County or the service we currently have in Trumbull County.
Justin?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Pete. Just a couple of observations. First of all, it's a very well thought out plan, and the idea of having that crosstown across 304 from Hubbard through Liberty to Girard makes a lot of sense, and of course it hits that Liberty Giant Eagle where you have other routes that obviously you can connect to there. I have a couple of questions. When are you thinking of starting the service to Akron? And then also, in the future, are you considering any hookups into Pennsylvania? I mean, you're going to be going to Brookfield, so could there be a connection to Sharon and the Mercer County Transit System up there? And maybe a connection from the east side of Youngstown to the Lawrence County Transit System at New Bedford, PA?
Sure. So the Akron route, the plan is to start that, I believe, the first week of December. We're kind of waiting for to see how our vehicles roll out, but I think we can get that started in December. The Pennsylvania idea, it is in the plan. We don't have a specific date set aside for that. Most of our efforts have been so far geared toward getting the Trumbull County plan put together, and depending on how things shake out with when this occurs, will determine how we how or when we go into Pennsylvania. But I would like to make that connection again, because I understand that we had a connection, I don't know how many years ago, with them, and I think we need to return to that, because that is a valid connection that we need to connect the communities together.
All right, any other questions for Dean? Great, not hearing anything. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to run through that with us all here. It's really exciting stuff, getting to look, into the near future for what could be possible. So,
Thank you so much.
all right, and for those of you that have called in on the phone, you weren't able to see the one slide that I added just a while just before this meeting, but I will include the links to the survey in the follow-up email that I'll send out about this meeting, so everyone will have access to that and can fill out their transit survey. Moving on in the agenda, originally we had planned to have Dominic Marchionda from Youngstown State University give an update on the Economic Recovery Grant. Unfortunately, there was a scheduling hiccup there, so he will be back, or one of his colleagues will be back next month to give an update on the work that they've been doing. That study kind of takes a look at the Lordstown, North Jackson area and evaluates the fallout from the loss of the GM Lordstown plant and how we can build a stronger economy to make sure that the negative ramifications from that event don't occur in the future. What we will hear an update for is some of our transportation planning programs. So you'll get to hear my voice for a little bit longer. I'm sure you're all very thrilled about that. But we'll start off with our corridor planning program. For those of you that remember, we selected State Route 46 in the Wethersfield Niles area. So I'll just kind of give a brief summary of kind of like what we're looking at, a quick review of how we kind of built up that planning program and what we've kind of discussed with some of the stakeholders and project partners. And then I'll go through kind of like this new methodology to kind of talk about this new effort that we're putting into place through this planning process that we hope to carry on into future iterations. But essentially, it's taking a look at State Route 46 or Niles Canfield Road from Interstate 80 interchange into downtown Niles. So a decent stretch. You go through kind of the heart of Mineral Ridge and then another little section that kind of crosses over the Western Reserve Greenway Trail before you head into Niles proper. Some of the planning concepts that we're looking is generally just the built environment within and adjacent to the public right-of-way. So we're looking at the street and how it functions as far as traffic flow and traffic safety. We want to make sure that the adjacent land uses and how the community has developed over time and where they're at now is facilitated appropriately by the infrastructure that's in place. And then eventually, when we get to the final part of this planning process, we'll develop recommendations that we see can help facilitate, better community development and better transportation practices throughout this corridor. Like I said, transportation and safety interventions is a big part of this. State Route 46 being a larger road, a pretty hefty arterial cutting through these communities, there's bound to be some safety issues. So taking a look through some of that safety data and finding those areas that really stand out and make us take a second and third look at really what's going on there and what the types of uses are, how people are navigating these scenarios, and what we can come up with to alleviate some of those issues. Along this corridor, there's two schools directly off of the main roadway. So, what are the safety impacts of having schools right off of kind of a state route that there may be some speed issues on? And then another planning concept that was important to the kind of project team was regionalize regional and localized transportation connectivity. So as far as State Route 46 is concerned, what benefit does it provide to these communities? How do people use it compared to similar routes? So, these other north-south connectors that maybe are a spur off of Interstate 80. And what does State Route 46 do that's better than some of those? And what do those similar corridors do that is better than State Route 46 that we could maybe share that learning regionally and make some improvements that way? And on this slide at the very bottom, get to that new assessment methodology, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but it's called the Built Environment Assessment Tool. It was developed in about, I think, 2015 by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as a way to kind of assess a community and bring in the topics of health and active living and sustainable community development into kind of the transportation planning process, and all at the same time of kind of taking an inventory of the assets that you have along a roadway. So some really interesting stuff. I'll touch a bit more on that in just a minute. But I do want to talk about kind of what's next from this point. So we've been doing this planning process since July. So where do we, taking an inventory of where we are now, what we've accomplished already, and where we're going in the next couple of months. So some more data collection, like I alluded to, that Built Environment Assessment Tool, it has a data collection component that requires us to go out into the field and take a look segment by segment along this corridor and perform some data collection and analysis. We'll be doing some more intensive stakeholder interviews, kind of one-on-one pieces to figure out, some organizations and agencies and businesses and residents that are along this corridor to really figure out what State Route 46 kind of helps them accomplish. What are some of the barriers that they see, and what improvements could be made to it to help their quality of life improve. So really taking those aspects of it to make this plan functional and something worthwhile for the project partners. Data analysis and recommendation development. So this is kind of the last piece of it, is when we really kind of scrape everything away and figure out what can we recommend to these communities as improvements along this corridor that will help them reach their goals. And the last piece on this slide is public engagement. So obviously COVID-19 kind of threw a wrench into a lot of things. Typically, we would go out at the start of this project and do some face-to-face conversations and kind of like storytelling and feedback events. That couldn't happen. So we're in the process of putting together kind of an online survey as kind of our first effort at some public engagement. This project wraps up by the end of June, so we're hoping that with the light at the end of the tunnel and things starting to improve regarding this whole situation, that we will be able to get out to do some in-person public engagement before we hit the end of June to get some feedback on maybe the draft version of this plan before we finalize everything. So looking forward to that and hopefully getting to talk to some folks out there, because really that's at the core of this plan is making sure it works for the people that are there now. It's kind of the most important part when you're taking a look at this type of planning and community development. So the last piece I'll talk about with the corridor plan is this Built Environment Assessment Tool. So talked a little bit kind of about what it's all about. We're looking at road types and curb cuts and ramps and intersections and crosswalks, and are there push buttons for pedestrians? How tall are the signs? How far off is the buffer between the sidewalk and the roadway? Really just a comprehensive look at what installations as far as infrastructure have been put into the ground in this location. And then, it'll give us a better understanding of, the walkability of this area. Is it bikeable? Is there infrastructure in place that facilitates that? Is there room for that infrastructure to go in the future? It'll allow us more of an insight, and it's more quantitative than qualitative, which is something that we were really striving for with this program. We felt, going through the Belmont Avenue plan, as successful as we felt that end product was, it was still a little qualitative. So we wanted something that was a little more fixed, a little more data driven, and finding this, I think, gets us there. And one of the other aspects of this is that we now can start building a database of these corridors and how they're scoring through this tool. So as we complete this type of data collection and analysis on other corridors and other roadways, we'll then be able to compare those. And this tool has existed since 2015, so we're finding other communities that have done this similar work in their own locations. So not even just comparing to our own region, but other regions, and seeing what kinds of features and what types of infrastructure facilitation can make improvements in these areas. And I think that'll really get us to a point down the line as we continue doing this analysis where we're able to make stronger and better recommendations for our local communities. And all of that ties back into kind of the mission of Eastgate, is to be able to make some of these recommendations for transportation improvements to our local communities, and hopefully help them find the money to make that a reality. So that is a very quick update on the corridor plan. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about that program? Obviously, as that kind of gets more into a draft form, I'll bring that to this committee and make that available so that you're all able to look through that and see kind of, take a quick review of it. And if it strikes your fancy, you can get back to me with some of your thoughts and feedback. But any questions at this point?
Yes, Justin.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you if any thought is going to be given to that very dangerous odd angle intersection between the bike trail and 46, just north of Salt Springs Road. There's a lot of very fast traffic there and a lot of traffic volume. I'm not sure what you would suggest that we could do with that. I don't think you have room for any bridge approaches, so I don't think we can send the bike trail over 46 by a bridge, and that would probably cost at least a couple of $1 million just for the bike trail bridge alone, if it were feasible. I wanted to hear more from you on what you think we ought to do about the bike trail 46 intersection.
Certainly. That's a great observation, and the bike trail crossing is kind of almost the entirety of our active transportation component of this. The bike trail being almost parallel to that corridor for its entire run is a great asset, and also provides kind of some relief for maybe needing to make kind of that access available on road or along the roadway. So a lot of what we're looking to with regards to kind of bikeability along this corridor is how do we improve that specific crossing, because that is kind of a hazard and one of the barriers when you're looking at bikeability through that corridor, and also how do we improve connection to it. So, further south, how do we get people onto the bike trail that maybe live in those communities in Mineral Ridge without them having to travel up to maybe the trailhead in Niles, or find some way to connect near that crossing of 46. But great comment, Pete.
Justin, have you guys used that CDC planning tool for this project?
So yeah, we identified it, I'd say in the fall, and really went through kind of the manual on how to proceed with that type of analysis. It requires field work to collect all of the data.
Right.
So I'm working with Grant at our office and Luke to get ready to go out there. It seems like the weather's starting to play nice with us, so We're going to give a practice run here in the next week or two, and then really hit it hard along 46 over the next month so that we get all that data collected and we have enough time to run that analysis
Great.
and
Looks like
use that.
very helpful.
Yeah, it was really exciting to find. It's something that I enjoyed sinking my teeth into and learning a lot about. So I'm excited to see the output from it and what we're able to take.
With the CDC starting it, there's got to be a fairly significant health connection there too, right?
Absolutely. So we've partnered with the Healthy Community Partnership for the last several years, and I know we've had Sarah Lowry from that group speak to the CAB, and uh, I think we're getting to a point in our planning processes where we need to start bringing that health aspect into it, and whether it's getting people to locations where they can recreate or just building active living into our communities. That's something we certainly need to pay attention to, and I think this tool gets us one more step closer to fully incorporating that into some of our planning products. All right. Anything else on corridor planning before I move along? Great. So I do have an update for you on another program of ours that's kind of similar, but is implemented in a different way. So corridor planning is an effort of our agency internally. We partner with the local communities where we identify a corridor that is regionally significant and would have a benefit to having some more in-depth comprehensive planning done for those communities. And we do that work internally. The planning grant is a grant program that we make available out of our own planning funds. We kind of set them aside right at the beginning of the year. We take $30,000, put it in its own pot, and we allow our local communities to apply for those funds to do similar planning work. So this year, we run this program every other year, so we are in a grant-making year this year. And I will run through kind of an update on the program. So at this point, we do a pre-application and a full application process. We received 6 applications, both pre-applications and full applications. Everyone that submitted a pre-app submitted a full app in the end. So we were happy to see that. A lot of great interest. One of the notable things you'll see as I kind of give a summary of each of these projects is that they're all Mahoning County. So obviously something happened where we dropped out of Trumbull County somehow with our messaging. So that's just an initial kind of observation from this year's program before it's even all the way through, is that next time around we really need to be more intentional about making sure our message is heard and clear. I know we had met with a few groups, but maybe the timing and situation just didn't match up for all of them. So we have those applications in. We assemble a scoring committee. So Eastgate doesn't do any kind of determination on how this money is spent, who gets awarded funding, any of that. We structure the scoring committee much in the same way that the Transportation Alternatives Program is structured. We have a member from the Ohio Department of Transportation, a member from Mahoning and Trumbull County Commissioners, a member from City of Warren, and a member from the City of Youngstown, and as well as a member from the Citizens Advisory Board that has representation on this group that runs through the scoring process, and eventually that group together makes a recommendation. So you'll see that last bullet point, that recommendation will be presented at the April TAC, CAB, and General Policy Board meetings for approval. So this is kind of like a prepper for this group here before that group makes their final decision, just so there's some information that you all have before you see that resolution come before you next month. I'm going to quickly go through these pre-application submissions. This presentation, I sent it out beforehand. It's available on our website. Feel free to read through these summaries kind of on your own, but just real quick, the city of Canfield applied. It's almost a continuation of the planning grant that they were awarded last round, but just a little more specific focus, focusing on kind of a trail linkage within the city. Their total project cost is $15,000, and they're requesting $9,000 in planning grant funds. The Village of Poland applied to produce an active transportation plan for the entire village. $10,000 total project cost with $9,000 in planning grant request. City of Struthers applied to do a planning study on this concept of a 15-minute city, which is very interesting and would be the Valley's first 15-minute city concept. $68,000 total planning cost with a $30,000 planning grant request. The city of Youngstown has applied for 3 separate projects. So this is the first of them. This was the Parks Department that led this project. And essentially looking at an active transportation connection between Lincoln Park and McKelvey Lake with a $15,000 total project cost and $10,000 grant request. The city's second application was a partnership between them and Boardman Township, looking at Glenwood Avenue as an active transportation corridor to create an improvement plan along that corridor. $42,000 total project cost, $30,000 in grant request. And lastly, the city of Youngstown applied for a strategy for kind of like their center city pedestrian wayfinding. So this project was kind of born out of the Smart 2 network. If you're familiar with the build grant that they received, this is kind of an extension of that project to focus more on pedestrian navigation. $13,500 total cost with a $10,000 grant request. So if you were doing some mental math in there, we make $30,000 available. There is $98,000 in grant request, which shows that this planning or grant program is in demand, and it's obviously resonating with our communities. So we are happy to see that from the agency side. You know, we want to make sure that we can, you know, make as many of these happen as possible and really get the best bang for our buck and have a great return. So it's great to see that much. And, you know, we're constantly thinking of other ways that we can kind of facilitate all of these great ideas for these communities and make sure we're getting them closer to making all of these projects a reality. So like I said earlier, April 1st, the TAC and this group here will see the resolution for approving that funding request that's made by the scoring committee, and then April 26th, General Policy Board would get the TAC and CAB's recommendations on that resolution. And kind of after that point is just kind of grant agreement work between Eastgate and the selected project or projects that are receiving funding, and then those projects will kick off July 1st and they'll have a year to complete. So June 31st of 2022 is when those projects would finish up. So again, another quick run through of that program. Does anybody have any questions about how that works? Any thoughts?
Yes, Justin, I have some observations, and I'll try to mention them very quickly.
Sure.
You mentioned a project in Poland for facilitate walking and bicycling. Poland already has the beginnings of that. There's a former streetcar bed that is now used as a kind of a mini bike trail on Sheridan Road, right behind where the old Poland post office used to be, the former post office. There are several blocks of paved bike trail there. So that perhaps could be a good starting point. That just occurs to me. The Struthers plan for walkability, the 15-minute city, I think one of the challenges there is the hilly terrain, which is very difficult to cycle if you're going uphill in Struthers, and it would be difficult for walkers as well. And I believe that Nemmons on Youngstown Poland Road is the only full-service grocery store they have in Struthers. I could be wrong about that. Finally, on the east side of Youngstown, that's considered Youngstown's wilderness there between Lincoln Park and the McKelvey Lake Dam. And right now, that would be a very challenging hike. The creek bed, I believe it's called Dry Run, that would have to become your trail if you want to walk from Lincoln Park up to McKelvey Lake Dam. I don't know what they're thinking about. Are they looking at a hiking trail to parallel that creek, or even a bike trail? I understand it's a rather steep ravine.
Yeah, all great comments. As far as, on the east side's concerned with that with that project, I think that's kind of what they're applying for, is to look into those solutions and figure out what their best option is to move forward and get ready to have a plan for that and how they should pursue it.
I have a comment on the Struthers plan. And full disclosure, my name's Samantha Energy. Sorry, I'm calling in, so you probably can't see my name. But in full disclosure, I do consulting for the city. But there's currently 2 full-scale supermarkets. There's also Shop and Save on 5th Street. But I just wanted to say, though, that's the purpose of the planning effort, to see where we would need these different needs-based amenities and commercial facilities in Struthers. So, yeah, just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you, Samantha. All right, your thoughts on planning grant? Jack, was that you?
Yeah, I'm trying
Okay.
to speak. I'm on my phone, so can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. I was wondering, Justin, has there been any conversations at Eastgate about increasing the amount of funding that's allocated to the planning grant program? Because it sounds like you've got some good projects. I mean, full disclosure on my end, I was involved in the Glenwood one, but it sounds like you've got a lot of great projects. Is there a way that the funding can be increased for that program?
Short answer, in a way. So we are limited in how much funding we can make available in this, just how the financials of our agency work and the source of this funding. The last round, the scoring committee made a recommendation that was above the $30,000, and I believe it was an extra $3,000 or $4,000. And that's kind of a decision that our executive director can make when that comes to him. So, they made that recommendation. It went to Jim, and he approved it in the end. So we were able to fund 3 projects above that $30,000 threshold. Again, I think it was $34,000. And there's an opportunity for that to happen again this year. I don't know. I don't really have a sense of how the scoring committee will kind of shake all of this out in the end. It's likely that, we may see a recommendation above that $30,000 again. So it is a possibility. There's really no answer to what that upper threshold is, though.
Well, what I mean is, like, maybe not this time around, but in the future, is that something that Eastgate's considering, increasing its budgetary allocation towards the planning grant program? Or is that something that is, limited in terms of how you fund it, or are there other funding sources that are available that Eastgate could pursue for planning projects of that nature?
I gotcha. Yeah, so we get this request quite a bit for this program. Like I said before, we run it every other year. There's been a little bit of pressure for us to make that a yearly program. which I think is possible. It just kind of takes some financial restructuring and us figuring out how we can actually make that work. And also, it, that's not the only idea. It could be that maybe we keep it at a biannual project or a biannual grant program, but we increase the amount of money we make available to it. Those are all ideas that have been thrown at us and have been kind of rattling around. I think coming into this grant year, there was a little uncertainty with our funding with respect to how COVID-19 was impacting everything. So we decided to kind of play it safe and just kind of keep everything the same. I would not be surprised to see the program evolve going into the next round. Whether we, go to that every year allocation or whether we increase the biennial allocation, I'm not so certain of, but I would expect there to be some type of advanced or some type of evolution of the program going forward.
Cool. Yeah, I just feel like with so many active transportation projects in particular that are going on throughout the county, it would make sense to, do what you can to support those types of projects. Because a lot of times, particularly with smaller communities, but even with Youngstown, doesn't necessarily have a lot of resources to dedicate or the expertise to dedicate to developing a plan like that. But it's definitely needed all over the county.
100% agree with you there. We adapted this program from our partner agency in Akron, AMATS. It's a very similar program that they run where they, take their planning funds right off the top every year and they allocate grants out to their communities. So, we kind of use them as a model. And I know just kind of our take on it from the first 2 years, we were, ecstatic at the reception that it had and the interest that we had coming from all the communities. So it's been a successful program, and I think the way that you continue to facilitate that as you grow it.
Agreed.
All right. So we'll skip ahead in the agenda here. General Policy Board is coming up. It's at the end of next month. So if you've got thoughts on what you'd like to see the CAB include in that presentation that we give at that meeting, feel free to send those to me. Typically, I just put together a summary of what the CAB talks about, some of the speakers that were featured at the meetings, and then a summary of the resolutions that were voted on. But certainly not limited to that being all that the CAB provides in their report. So if you have thoughts, feel free to send them my way. If you're interested in attending that meeting, let me know and I can get you on the list. So when that meeting information goes out, you'll be on the receiving end of that. Speaking of policy board resolutions, there is one this month. So this is a resolution amending the fiscal year 2021 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program to identify state preservation funds on Mahoning 680 pavement replacement project, as well as increasing the funding on Western Reserve Greenway Trail Phase 4. So this resolution was included, attached to the agenda that was sent out. I'll also be sending this resolution to the board members for a vote following the meeting. But does anybody have any comments or discussion or anything that they'd like to talk about with this resolution at this point?
Justin, is Phase 4 the segment between Niles and Warren on that bike trail?
I believe so. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that's correct.
Well, that's a missing link. I mean, it's a gap of several miles, and I assume that that's what Phase 4 refers to. And that's just my best guess right now, because that's the first gap I think of in the bike trail.
Yeah.
Justin, I have a question.
Go ahead.
At the bottom, there's an asterisk and it says additional funding request in the amount of $212,800. And then in parentheses, they've got a 4TB7. What is that linked to?
Also a good question. I would have to ask Stephen Zubik, who's been working with this project for clarification on that, and I can get an answer to that question before I send out the resolution to the board for a vote.
Yeah, because then that might help in our determining,
Mm-hmm.
how we vote. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, and Pete, to answer your question, I just brought up the resolution on the screen here. The phase 4 of the Western Reserve Greenway is in Trumbull County, so it would be that missing link.
Thank you for checking that.
Mm-hmm. All right. I will make note of that question to clarify what that code is after the additional funds. And then, like I said, I'll send this out for a vote, and then we can move on from there. So into the announcements portion, I listed a few opportunities for feedback and surveys that are still up and running, that are active, that you can all take a look at if you haven't already. We've got our broadband study going on, which is a great survey to take kind of an assessment of regional internet and broadband needs and performance. ODOT is still seeking public comment for the State Route 82 Howland Wilson Road intersection improvement. That public comment period closes tomorrow. So if you have thoughts on that project, be sure to get them in sooner rather than later. The hours are counting down. And lastly shown on here is the Mahoning River project. That survey and mapping activity are still up and available. So if you have yet to do that, I encourage you to go to that website and participate in those tools. And then it was previously identified was the WRTA surveys. I'll make sure that those are also linked in the follow-up email so everybody has the links to those. But that's all the announcements that I have for you. Does anybody else have announcements for the good of the committee?
Not an announcement, but a question. What, if anything, did the Trumbull County Park District decide to do about the Levittsburg Dam?
Great question. I have not heard an update on that recently. I do know they had a meeting. It may have been yesterday or the day before. So I will consult with Joanne and Stephanie that work closer on that project to see if they have an update.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything? Any comments, questions, announcements?
Hi, this is Ben Kyle.
Hi, Ben.
Hey, I just want to thank Mr. Zubik and Eastgate for attending our bridge opening ceremony that we had earlier this week about the Myron Street Bridge and the cooperation between Trumbull County Engineers Office and the City of Hubbard and also Eastgate and ODOT. So I just want to officially announce that, it was a phenomenal effort on all parties involved to get a new bridge for us in the City of Hubbard. So I just want to thank Mr. Zubik as part of the Eastgate staff.
That's excellent. I'll pass on your message to Stephen. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the city didn't pay anything for that, right?
Correct. Yeah, that was a 100% funded effort in the sense of the city paid nothing for it. It was a some work that was done on behalf of the city to get the funding for it. It was a difficult bridge because there was nothing that was connected with certain aspects, but it was extremely important because it's the gateway to our industrial corridor. But it was a zero cost to the city, and we couldn't be any more thankful for that.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing.
And in May it'll be renamed the Hubbard Veterans Bridge, and it's going to honor all those past, present, and future that have served in the armed services, and it's a really important thing for us. So definitely
Fantastic.
a long-lasting impact that everybody was able to achieve.
Well, it's great to hear a success story. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. If there's nothing else that anybody has, we will adjourn and we'll see you all back on April 1st for our next CAB meeting.
Yeah,
Thank
one
you.
more thing, Justin, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Well, this is just kind of a comment and kind of a question too. Could you maybe, and like, if we don't have a lot of time, that's okay, but I wanted a little bit more information about the Western Reserve Road widening project. Like, how is that project funded exactly? Where does the funding come from for that?
I'm not very familiar with that project, but if I had to guess, that's through our state transportation block grant program. Uh, I would have to consult with Stephen to get you more information on the specifics of it. Just as I really haven't been too involved with it. I know that it was a project that was approved a couple years ago, and I think it's just now starting to maybe go out to bid or go into construction.
Comment on that is, I feel like we need to, like, can that funding be used for things other than expanding infrastructure? Because I just feel like we need to be investing as a community more into like existing infrastructure. You know, we have a lot of vacant commercial land, not just in Youngstown, but throughout the county that, you know, with sewers, with roads. Why are we spending public money adding infrastructure and green fields? And you know what I mean? Like, we need to really, as a community, come together and focus our efforts on leveraging resources to make what we've already got better. Because we're continuing to lose population, yet we're working on widening roads and expanding greenfield development. You know what I'm saying?
100% see what you're getting at there. If there is interest from the CAB committee, that is something that would the CAB could make note of in their report to the General Policy Board. So that's kind of the CAB's recommendation or just observation on projects like those and kind of the ideology behind it, and make that known to the members of the General Policy Board at our agency. So if that's something that the CAB would like to include in that report, that's one way to at least initially address some of those concerns.
Is that something that you guys think we should do? I mean, I know I'm pretty new to the meetings, but I really do think we need to start thinking as a community about focusing our investments on making our existing infrastructure better. And I mean, I know we do through some aspects, but why are we still, you know what I mean, expanding our infrastructure when we've got so much of it that needs so much work?
I think a way that we could maybe address this is to put it on the agenda for discussion at next month's meeting. And that's, April 1st. The General Policy Board meeting happens April 26th. So there's still some time there. And it'll allow me to be able to reach out to Stephen and get some more information on that project specifically, if that helps.
Sounds good.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm hearing agreement, I think, from Pete and Genevieve. So,
well, I had a suggestion for you, Justin, on the Western Reserve Road widening project. I think a very good speaker on that would be Mahoning County Engineer Patrick Giannetti. If he's available, perhaps he can address our April 1st meeting on the Western Reserve project.
Sure. Is the discussion more focused on that project specifically, or would you like to have kind of a larger, more philosophical discussion on just those types of projects and use of funding towards that type of infrastructure?
I think both.
Okay.
Well, Pat
I mean, I
Giannetti
think
can talk about all of the county roads. He's in charge of all the county roads, including Western Reserve Road, which of course carries a lot of traffic. It's no longer just a country road, and I think part of the reason for that is so much of the population has moved further out of the city and into the suburbs out there.
Okay, yeah, I will get more information kind of like from our office internally, as well as reach out to the Mahoning County engineers to see if they could join us and kind of have a discussion about this topic.
Sounds good. Yeah, but I think also just generally speaking, I think we need to, both, this project's kind of a case in point, I guess, in some respects, but like on a general level, I think, as a community, we need to start talking about that for sure.
Certainly. All right. Anybody else have anything to add before we dismiss?
Just to say thank you.
All right.
Good job, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
See you next
Good
time.
job. Thank you.